Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. I am so sorry I'm 15 minutes late today. It has already been quite an exciting morning, and I'm just now able to get on live. As you can tell, I just came straight from outside, dropping my child off late to school today. So I don't necessarily look like I'm ready for my day, but I am ready to talk about affirmations today as part of our month-long celebration of self-love. Last week we talked about appreciation, and this week we're talking about affirmations. So last week was more about how can you create some different type of perspectives and shifts in how you feel about yourself. That's where appreciation begins. Today we're going to talk about how do you make that tangible and shift that into something new, a new reality for you, and that's through the use of affirmation. If you have never seen me go live before, my name is Jenn Espinosa-Goswami. Thank you so much for joining me today on Friday. We do these live videos every Friday morning. The time changes based on what my schedule looks like, but it's usually between 9 a.m. and 10 Central Time. And the videos are available throughout the course of the weekend. They never go away. I never take them down from this page. So if this video is interesting to you, please think about sharing it with your community. And don't forget to click the little thing about this video that says get notifications so that you get notified when I go live next Friday. Speaking of next Friday, I don't really have a topic in mind, so if there's something in particular you would like to focus on when it comes to self-love, I'm all ears. I'd love to learn more about that and what topics are of most interest to you. Otherwise, stay tuned on this page because I do ask questions from time to time to see what you'd like me to talk about. So I mentioned that today was a little bit crazy. Oh, by the way, I'm Jenn Espinosa-Goswami. I am a health coach who helps moms find body bliss. And bliss is different for everyone, and it doesn't have a particular size or weight. However, I work with women who are dissatisfied with where they currently are. They don't feel comfortable in their skin. They don't feel confident with how they show up physically, mentally, emotionally. I help them get to a better place. So I do that through helping. Yeah. Oh, really? Okay, that's my daughter. We had to walk our dog. Thank you. I'm on a video right now. So I help women do that through a combination of goal setting, mindset work, meal planning, if that's something that they're seeking to establish for themselves or make better for their family. I also do topics around gym-free fitness. And when I say gym-free, I mean exactly that. You don't have to join a club or a membership or a studio in order to achieve your best fitness. I'm a living example of that, and I teach other people how to make that work for themselves, especially moms who either work inside or outside the home, but they don't have a lot of time to dedicate towards taking the commute to the gym, or don't have the money to put into a gym membership, because I think most of them range between $50 to $150, depending on the type of membership you're looking at. And I understand that not everyone has money to afford that. So those are some of the ways I support people. And thank you so much for joining me on this page today. So let's talk about affirmations. What is an affirmation? Let's start with the basics, right? What really is an affirmation? You may have seen things out there talking about what affirmations look like examples of affirmations. And I'm looking at some of the definitions on the internet, my good friend Google. And what affirmations are the practice of positive thinking and self-empowerment. So if you've never heard of that before, basically it means that you can create your own reality through how you talk to yourself or talk about your reality in your world right now. And the idea behind affirmations is that you foster a belief that a positive mental attitude supported by the affirmations, so the tangible things that you say or the statements that you utilize, will help you achieve success in anything. Now, I was never a big believer in affirmations because I'm very much a action-oriented person, and all of my programs work on the goals that you take and the actions you take. And those matter 100% more than affirmations. I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, you can do affirmations all day long, but if you don't take any action, it's not going to do a darn thing for you. So I'm not saying that affirmations are instead of actions. I'm just saying there's something that can help supplement and confirm the actions that you wish to take. And for some people, I do know people personally, and I've interviewed them on my blog, who have started with the mental piece of it, the affirmations piece, before they were able to take the right actions for their own bliss. So I've seen this happen. I have people in my network where this is the case for them. And what I'd like to do today is help you cultivate a mindset that helps you love the actions that you plan on taking to improve your life. So some of the affirmations that you may come across, because if you Google it, there's literally like 80 different affirmations you can do, statements you can make. There's one called 101 Best Louise Hay Affirmations of All Time. And just out of curiosity, I'll probably pull that up because Louise Hay is a very well-known person, has a huge movement around forgiveness and happiness and healing. And so that may be someone you've come across. You may have a person that you currently follow that has a bunch of affirmations, and maybe that's someone that you personally connect to and they make sense to you. So basically, affirmations are a positive statement. They're never a question. Questions are a different thing. So questions could be a coaching type technique, or can be open-ended so that you don't necessarily have to come up with the answers. That's not what we're talking about. Affirmations are statements. So they have to be statements that you already resonate with in one way or another. Let me repeat that. It has to be a statement that you already resonate with on some level. So for example, I'm going to throw a couple of affirmations out there. And if you're joining me live or watching this replay, say hi first, and then let me know if there's an affirmation that you particularly like or resonate with. So when I'm looking at the Louise Hay, pardon me, affirmations, one of them says, loves me, or all is well in my world. You might say, I am in the process of positive change. Of the affirmations that I tend to use and that have been helpful for me, especially when I was working on my half marathon, are I am statements. Now, you may have heard this before. I am. I have this from a conference I did quite a while back. I should probably stick this somewhere and put it somewhere, but I use this on my vision board. I use these ideas when I'm working with clients. I'm not going to tell you what your I am statement is because that's very specific and personal to you. But I'll give you an example of how I use an I am statement and how it helped me in a very real way. So first of all, affirmations are something that pave the way for the future you want to create. So your affirmation is going to be talking about something that hasn't happened yet, but you very much want to happen. And here's where a lot of people feel a disconnect. They're like, they might say like, well, yeah, I want to be a millionaire. And I can say today that I am a millionaire. It doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm going to be a millionaire. And you're 100% right. And it's not going to resonate with you if you're very far away from being a millionaire. So if you say I am a millionaire today and you say it for the next 30 days, if you don't resonate with it on a personal level, then it may not have the same impact for you. So when you come up with an I am statement, it has to be something that you very much want to happen in the future. You're not currently there. And it also has to be something that resonates with you and that makes sense for you. When I say make sense, I don't mean that you think it's realistic or probable or anything like that, because most of us have no idea what we're able to accomplish. Most of us have no idea what our potential is and never will. And that's why affirmations help you pave the way, because we can't dream of a bigger tomorrow until we start dreaming about it. And the affirmation is the beginning part of that dream and trying to make that dream more tangible for you in the present tense. So affirmations, some of the ones, the example I was going to give to you was when I was training for my half marathon. By the way, when I signed up for the half marathon, I was not running at all. 0 miles, 0. I wasn't doing anything. I mean, I was exercising. I was doing very intense HIIT workouts, which is high intensity interval training. I was doing weightlifting. I was fit, but I did 0 mileage when I signed up for my half marathon. Hi, Mary. Thanks for joining today. We're talking about affirmations. Feel free to share one of your favorites below here if you'd like to, or several if you feel like sharing several. So I was doing 0 miles at the time I signed up to do 13.1 miles. And I knew I had the right coach for me. She's someone in my Fit for Mom group, so she has oodles of experience. She's a great runner. Running is kind of her therapy, and she's a great person. So I'm like, I know she's the right coach for me. This is going to be a good thing. And she gave me a very strategic and structured plan. So I wasn't going in it completely blind. However, I wasn't a runner at the time I signed up for a half marathon. So as you can well imagine, if you go from 0 miles to 13 miles, there's going to be a progression for one, but there's also going to be the roadblocks. And I'm not talking about the physical roadblocks. I'm talking about the roadblocks up here. So good, Mary, then we're going to help you get there. Mary's telling that she wants to do more affirmations, which is great. Let's get that established for you. That'll be fun. So, you know, how do you go from not running at all and not identifying as a runner to saying I'm a marathon runner? Well, I had to do a lot of mindset work. So I had to come up with an affirmation that made sense for me. And I had multiple ones. I'm not going to say that there was just one that stood out for me. Of course, I was saying I am a marathon runner. I had visual representations of the future I was creating. I wore what's called a road ID, so it's a bracelet, and it said my name, it said my contact information, because I have asthma, and if I was panting on the side of the road and couldn't breathe, I wanted someone to be able to save me, so my contact information was there, my husband's contact information, my challenges, but it also said 13.1 on it, because I needed that visual representation. So every time I went for a run, I would wear my bracelet for medical reasons, for asthma, but also because it said 13.1. So even if I was just running 2 miles that day, or 5 miles, or 7 miles, or whatever, I had that visual representation on my hand that I am a half marathoner, or I will be by a certain date. Now here's where affirmations do not have power. If you say, I will, and then fill in the blank for whatever your future state is, that's not an affirmation. That's a wish. An affirmation is not a wish. You want to create that affirmation in the present day. Present, present, present. So I will is already putting it out into the future. And when we put something out into the future, it may never happen, because we have a really loose definition of time. And when you put something in the future tense, then you think, oh, I can get to that at some point. Someday, right? It becomes someday, which means never. Someday becomes never. So that's why you want to put your affirmations in present tense. So as you can imagine, when I started training for this half marathon, saying I am a marathon runner was going nowhere logistically in my brain and my heart, because I'm like, I'm barely running 3 miles. And even that is a struggle. So I had my plan, I had my bracelet, which was my visual representation. I told a lot of people. I told my neighbor, I told my friends, I told a lot of people. And so I didn't tell them I'm going to run a marathon. I said I signed up for this marathon and I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. And so every time I went for a run, every time when I was going to sleep, not every day, but when I was feeling low and like, oh my God, can I do this? Because there's fear that comes up, right? Not all of our future state is going to happen easily. And I did have some pain. I did have some circumstances. I had to see a physical therapist. So I had to work through a lot of challenges, both physical and mental. So when I was going to sleep at night, in order to help me with this affirmation that I am a marathon runner, I dreamed about and I created this ideal image of what it's like when I cross the finish line. Not that that was going to happen that way, but the more I sat into that vision, the more I could believe and connect on a heart level with the I am a marathon runner. We even had some discussions going on with my running friends. This article came out where they're like, this woman wrote about how the fact that though she runs all the time, she doesn't identify as a runner. That's a problem. If you're working on a big goal and you're working on an affirmation to help make that goal more tangible for you, you have to believe it. It's going to be harder for you if you don't believe it. And here's how that showed up for me. So the week before my half marathon was scheduled, I ended up in the hospital with back pain and had MRI, was trying to figure out what was going on. It was significant pain. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably like an 8. But I was crying. That's how bad it hurt. And so it was a week before my marathon. I'm like, what do I do? Does this mean I can't run? Does this mean I'm injured? Does this mean I need surgery? Every time my back hurts, I'm like, does this mean I need surgery? because I had surgery before. So it's a realistic thing for me. And everything was unknown. I had no idea. And it turns out that physically there was nothing preventing me from running. However, I was not about to run 13.1 miles after experiencing that much pain. My husband was scared for me. My family was like, don't do it. So I ran a 5K because I had been running a lot of 3-milers, 4-milers, 5-milers. That was easy for me. I took it at my own pace. I listened to my body, but that did not help me believe that I was a marathon runner. So between July, which is when that 5K, I ran the 5K instead of the half, and October, when I actually did run the half, I had a lot of work to do, not just physically from a physical therapy standpoint, but also mentally, because I had a huge setback. I didn't even know if I could run anymore. I didn't know if my body was telling me, oh, you shouldn't run. This is not good for you. This is a bad idea. I had my goal to complete the marathon by the time I was 40, which was in November. So I'm like, well, that gives me 3 more months to train from July to October. I can do this. So I ran a 10K on Labor Day. And that was a fun experience until I found out that I was the second to last person to cross the finish line. And that made me feel a certain way. Now, so I had to do other mindset work as well with my affirmations, because I said, well, I am a runner. I'm running all the time. I ran 2 to 3 times a week consistently, and sometimes was easier than other times, but I made it work. Sometimes I had to foam roll and do some other things to make it comfortable for me to live my daily life, but I was still running. So I was no longer confused about the affirmation of I am a runner, because I was already running every day. By the way, affirmations are not for things you're already doing. If you're like, I am a mom, that's not an affirmation. You have to put something around that description that makes you get to a place that you don't feel like you're at right now. So whatever that might look like for you. You might say, I am a fabulous mom, because some moms feel guilt and they feel like they're not good moms. Or if you say, I am a powerful woman, maybe you don't feel powerful right now. Or you say, I am strong. Maybe you don't feel strong. Maybe there have been circumstances where you weren't able to do what you consider to be the minimum. So remember, even if you describe yourself as something, it has to be something that makes you feel kind of butterflies in your stomach, or a little bit of fear, or a little bit of, can I do this? That's when you know it's an affirmation. So those are some thoughts around the affirmation is creating a future state today in the present tense. It has to be something that challenges you a little bit, that makes you feel nervous or afraid a little bit, because that's a good thing. And some of the ways you can use it are saying I am statements. And those statements can be very specific or very general. So for example, for me, I am a marathon runner. That was very specific. It wasn't just saying I'm a runner, because I already did that, and that didn't feel like a challenge or a stretch for me. So it had to be something extra. Whatever you can do to bump it up and make it extra, that's what an affirmation will do for you. It will really kind of pump you up a little bit more. Now, you may have heard of affirmations such as, I am worthy of love, or I am exactly where I need to be, or we're still focusing on the I am statements. However, you don't need to use an I am statement. What if that makes you feel super uncomfortable? Or when you come up with an I am statement that challenges you, makes you feel a little nervous, you're like, it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't resonate with me. That's okay. You don't necessarily have to use an I am statement. There are other types of affirmations you can use. For example, some people like to take it a little more global, if you will. So for example, you might say things like, I welcome miracles into my life, or I welcome love, or everything is working out for me. I use affirmations around money from time to time, because I'm a businesswoman and I desire to earn more money in my business. So I use a lot of affirmations around money. For example, money flows effortlessly into my business. Clients are eager to work with me, things like that. Those are affirmations. And it doesn't mean they're not true, because clients are eager to work with me. But I'm trying to create a certain future state where I have a level of certainty with that certainty kind of comes through across to people who are talking with me on a phone call. So if I'm having a phone call with a prospective client, and I had just done my work in affirmations that morning and paved the way for it, saying clients are eager to work with me, or clients want to learn more about how I help them achieve their goals, and I have a phone call with someone an hour after that. What do you think the mood and attitude of that call would be? How do you think that would change things? It makes that person, it makes me more open to being of service to that person. It makes that person more willing to hear what it is, that I can help them with or not help them with, because I don't ever say someone should work with me if it's not a good fit. But it just creates the understanding that that's what I'm there to do. And not that I have to be like super salesy about it, because it doesn't necessarily mean I get salesy, but it opens me up to understand that I am inviting more of this in my life. So affirmations should be an invitation of something you want more of in your life. So that could be, you want more miracles, you want more love, you want more money, you want more, what else are things you could want more of? And I'm not talking about things. I'm not talking about materialistic stuff. I'm talking about more happiness. Do you want more happiness in your life? More connection? Those are some common things that come up with people that I work with. Less clutter. Usually we want to focus on more instead of less, but we can also change it up a little bit and say, I want more organization in my life. I want more flow in my life. And flow is just a state of being where things just kind of work out naturally and it feels good and comfortable and you're not even thinking about it and you forget what time it is. That's what flow means. So there are a lot of different ways you can take affirmations. Now, how do you establish a regular practice of doing these? This is going to be different for everyone, but here's what I recommend for people. Establish a regular affirmation process. Personally, I prefer to write it down. So if you are a person who already writes things down, whether you're journaling and when you wake up in the morning, before you go to bed at night, it doesn't really matter when you journal, just that you have a regular practice of it. You can journal your affirmations. So you can write them down. It can be different ones. It can be the same one. When you write it down, you're 40% more likely to believe it or to achieve it. And there are studies behind that. I'm just making that number up. So you could journal it and write it down. You can state it verbally to yourself. More power to you if you do it in the mirror. Because there is power at looking someone in the eye, even if that someone is yourself, and using this affirmation. Especially if you have trouble believing in yourself. And you would be surprised how many people don't believe in themselves, no matter what age they are, what stage in life they are. There are so many people who don't believe in themselves, and that's a shame. That's horrible. That's something that I want to personally change for people. You should believe in yourself. And when you don't believe in yourself, you should have someone in your corner helping you believe in yourself. So I personally prefer to write things down. You can also verbalize them to yourself. And if you don't want to do it in the mirror because that feels kind of kitschy or weird, or that's okay. You don't have to do it in a mirror. You can just repeat it out loud to yourself. Here's what that does. Like, some of you might be thinking, well, why can't I just think it in my head? I am beautiful, I am kind, and just think about it. Here's why. When you verbalize it, you're not just thinking it, you're also hearing it. So you're affirming and validating your own affirmation, and that has more power than just thinking about it. We have thousands of thoughts every day. Some of those thoughts are good for us, and some of them are not so good for us. Why don't we remove all the chatter in our head and verbalize it? Then that makes it more real, and it helps you to validate it as well at the same time you're saying it. And again, you can do this whenever you choose to. If you're commuting, you're in your car, you're driving somewhere. I sometimes do this on the way to a speaking engagement. I love speaking. And some days, maybe it's not been a very positive day for me. So I know that I need to be in a good place to deliver a beautiful presentation for an audience who wants to see me. So I will sometimes use affirmations on my way while I'm driving to a speaking presentation, because that allows me to be of service and focus less on the words I'm going to be using than on the message I want to share. And that's a very powerful technique. So if you have something important coming up, like a meeting or an interview, a difficult conversation with someone you love, something that's important to you, and you're nervous. I'm always nervous before I speak. No matter how many times I speak, I'm always going to be nervous because I care very much about what happens after I speak. What impact people are having, whether people enjoy the message I'm giving. I care very much, so I get nervous. If there's something coming up for you that's difficult and nerve-wracking, try using affirmations around what you want to impart. Now, I'm not saying that you can change how anyone else is going to be in that conversation, because you have no idea how that's going to go down. But you can set the right intention for how you want to be a part of that conversation. So you could say, I deliver amazing value. For me, I deliver amazing value to the audience. The right message is coming through to the audience, and they love hearing what I have to share. You know, I could use things like that. If you're preparing yourself for a very difficult conversation or something that makes you nervous, you could say, I show up honestly and authentically with the right message that I want to share. You know, there's lots of ways you could use that, but that's a good way for you to kind of pave the way mentally before you have to actually do it. And you might be surprised what comes out of your mouth after you pave the way with your mentality and with your creation, you know, before you do it. So affirmations before you do something that makes you nervous. It could be just creating a sort of certain feeling. Like, I walk away from this experience feeling lighthearted and playful. That's an affirmation. It's a way you want to show up and walk away, which is a beautiful thing to do. And you can do this in anything. It doesn't even have to be for something that might have a negative connotation. You could do it in a very playful way. Like, maybe you're going to do something that's super fun, and you're like, I'm going to connect with someone amazing today, and we're going to have a great time. You know, it could be anything. You just have fun with it and create the kind of feeling and the kind of experience that you want to. Oh, so I'm going to talk about affirmations a little bit more. So I talked about you can write it, you can verbalize it, and you can verbalize it in a mirror. Another thing that's important is to, especially if it's something that feels really far out for you, is to be very specific about who is with you in that environment. And here's what I mean. So I love to meet people in my niche in the health and wellness industry who I feel are very influential. And so a little story I want to share with you. I was at a conference back in November, and I almost didn't go to this conference because it was pricey. But I knew that one of my sheroes, Michelle May, founder of Am I Hungry, which is a mindful eating program. She was a nurse or a doctor, and she turned to this mindful eating program, and she's trained hundreds of thousands of people in the certification process. She's great. She also lives in Phoenix. And this was the only time I've heard of her coming to Minneapolis to this conference that I wanted to go to. I didn't have the money for it. I very much wanted to meet her. She offered me a discount code as being part of her mailing list to attend this conference, and I still didn't have the money. So I worked really hard on my mindset, and I created the right environment for that money to come in. And do you know that money came in one day before the conference? I literally bought my ticket the day before the conference, and I was shouting to my family. I'm like, yay, I just got paid. Because sometimes when I have an outstanding invoice, I don't know when it's going to come in. I set boundaries around when I should be paid for an opportunity, whether it's before, during, or after, but sometimes they come in a little bit later, you know, real life when you're an entrepreneur. And I didn't know that this invoice was going to come in. I knew it was due, but I didn't know it would come in one day before this conference. So I got to meet Michelle May. And when I was journaling, not just like the month before this conference when I knew she was coming to town, but 3 or 4 months prior to that, I said influencers like Michelle May. She was on my list of people that I wanted to meet and hang out with and take pictures with and all that good stuff. They reach out to me and they connect with me. I said things like that when I was journaling around what I wanted to create, and it happened. And it didn't just happen like magically, but it happened so suddenly, and it happened in such a perfect way. I even managed to sit at the same table she was sitting at on day one of the conference. I came in late to the conference. It had already started. The keynote speaker had already begun. I had my pick of this entire huge room of tables to sit at. Instead of sitting at the back tables, I said, no, I'm going to choose this table on the side here. I wasn't scoping out who was sitting there. I sat down. She was sitting right across from me. What are the chances of that? I created affirmations around what I wanted to look like, what I wanted that experience to look like, and it worked. I'm not saying that every affirmation you do is going to work, but I will say when you pave the way mentally, it's much easier for it to happen physically. So that's what the message I have for you today for affirmations. I'm sorry I went a little bit longer than I was hoping to go. Mary, has that been helpful for you, or is there something else you'd like me to address? And Deanna, thank you for joining today. What are your thoughts on affirmations, or do you have a particular affirmation that you prefer, the I am statements versus the creating the environment or the experience you want? I'd love to hear from you. As I'm waiting for people to weigh in if they wish to, I was just looking at some of the other affirmation possibilities, because there's lots of statements you can choose from, but I like some of these. For example, life supports me in every possible way. Wouldn't that be a beautiful idea with which to begin and end your day? Life supports me in every way. There's another one. Let's see. My day begins and ends with gratitude. Even if you don't have a gratitude practice, for example, if you don't say 3 things you're thankful for or whatever, how would your life or your day change if you say, my day begins and ends with gratitude? Would you be more likely to thank people for being in your life? Would you be more likely to identify things that you're specifically grateful for? You might be. Some other ones that I'm noticing on this list of different statements and affirmations: I am at home in my body. What a beautiful one, right? That's beautiful. Some other possibilities for you. Ooh, I really like this one, because sometimes we feel like the world is out to get us. And I'm not a person who feels that way because I'm naturally positive, but some people feel like, oh my God, what is that person thinking about me? What is that person thinking about me? If you're very attuned to mom guilt and things like that, this is a good affirmation for that. Everyone I encounter today has my best interests at heart. What a beautiful thing. Everyone I encounter has my best interests at heart. If you started with that thought and you're going into a difficult conversation with someone because you need to share some important things that might be difficult to say, if you go in there thinking everyone has my best interests at heart, would you choose different words in that conversation, or would you be more sympathetic or empathetic to whatever's going down in that conversation? You just might. So Mary shared, I love this. I've used it sometimes when I feel anxiety taking over, like with feeling food insecurities. There is enough food for me. I have enough and I am enough. That's good. You know, my father used to say things like, there is plenty for everyone. And he usually said it when we were at the dinner table, because, you know, us kids, there were 4 of us. We were like rabid wolves when the food came to the table, and we like descended like vultures. And he would say, no, 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 there's plenty for everyone. And there always was. And I always felt scarcity around food when I was a kid. I'm the youngest. I'm also the heaviest in my family, have always been. So it was really interesting that I felt scarcity around food. And it sounds like, Mary, you are also having some of that experience. But saying there's enough food for me, or there's plenty for me, or there's plenty for everyone, or I take pleasure in sharing what I have with others. You know, those could be ways to kind of walk around that and create a different reality for you. Don't have a regular practice. So if you want to focus in particular, Mary, on those food insecurities, you could say, this is the one statement, and you could choose several statements. It just depends on how you feel. But you could choose a couple different statements that apply for you around food insecurity, and you can choose to do it before you eat. You can choose to do it after you eat. It's probably more helpful to do it before you eat. So before every meal, or when you're meal planning, those would be key opportunities for you to kind of establish that practice. You can certainly do it, you know, before you go to bed at night as well, but it may not be as impactful for you. So just choose a time of day, and it can be just once a day. Maybe you decide that lunch and breakfast are too crazy for you, but you can certainly do that before dinner. You know, a lot of people pray before dinner and thank God for the food they have. That might be a good time for you to add silently to yourself, or out loud if you want your family to hear that, because there's no shame in that. You could say it out loud after the prayer. You know, there's lots of opportunities for you to do that, but I feel like establishing that as a practice alongside putting food on the table would be helpful, because understanding that there's plenty and there's no rush. I'm a very fast eater, so for me, when I get food in front of me, I'm like, I gotta eat it all as soon as I can. So for me, a good one might be, I take my time and savor my food, because that's something I need to learn more of. It's just being honest. Thank you for sharing, Mary. I appreciate that. So with that note, I will leave you all to enjoy the rest of your weekend. If this video has been helpful for you, don't forget to join me next week. I think I'll be going, so it's this February 15th. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to go at 9:30 Central Time. And we're still focusing on self. I will most likely do something around romantic love next week because it is Valentine's Day next week. But if you have a particular topic you would like me to address, then I'd love to address it. So make sure to pop your comments below this video, even if you're watching the replay. And if you're watching the replay and you're like, I want to share, feel free to share, because I do comment and check in with this page and these videos all the time. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love your engagement. I love seeing you share these videos. The more we share, the more we can spread self-love, which is a beautiful thing. So with that, this is Jenn Espinosa-Goswami, thanking you for joining me here at Weightless, and I hope you feel the self-love and establish an affirmation practice that makes sense for you. If you need help with establishing a practice, let's have a conversation. You can just comment below here. I'll connect with you privately. We'll see what that might look like, because I have a monthly membership program that I enroll every month. So if you're like, well, I don't know that I want to work with someone, but I at least want to have a conversation about what options are there for me, we can have a conversation about that. No pressure. If it works for you, it works for you. I want something to be impactful for you. I want you to feel the best you can today, not someday. And we can start creating that path for you through the use of the affirmations we talked about today. Have a beautiful Friday, and we'll talk to you next week.